Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the latest edition of the Woke Bros. Of course, I'm your co-host, Big Wos, and Nando is actually out. He's in his ancestral homeland of Spain right now,
Mm,
and
fancy.
so we got a great guest in his stead. My man, Ethan Strauss of the House of Strauss Substack, formerly of The Athletic, formerly of ESPN, formerly of Yelp, formerly of the NBA. Did I get all of your jobs down, bro?
Maybe you did, maybe you didn't, but I was already going down memory lane about a friend I had when I was living in New York who was half from Spain and half from Staten Island, which just produced
Oh
the
man.
most hilarious results of just the greasiest dude, the most disgusting dude who would say the most disgusting things, wearing a gold chain, jeans, belt up high, shirt tucked, leather jacket, and then that fancy lispy Spanish, and that was his other self. That's who or with him, and he was just a man about town. Like I don't even want to get into all the stuff, but yeah, that's just going down memory lane of Spain and New York and everything else. Was you bring it out of me?
That is fantastic. And, I did want to get you on here to talk some NBA stuff, but it would be boring to talk about how the Celtics are dealing with KD, whether they should switch everything or they should shade defenses towards him or they should just outright hard double or that's boring. We don't give a fuck
Mm.
about that. I wanted to talk about a piece that you wrote for your Substack about Mark Cuban and just his general, I guess you could say, public facing persona,
Yeah,
and how we've sort of squared that in the last 20 years of his, life in the public eye as Dallas Mavericks, a sole owner actually,
yeah,
and just, famous rich guy, right?
yeah.
And so I just, what made you want to write about Cuban?
Man, I don't even know why I do what I do. I always feel like the Joker where there's no scheme. I just do. I don't there's no plan. I just always want to talk about it because there's such an odd organization. And also I just felt
Mm,
sometimes I like going behind the scenes of something, and with Cuban, he is such a businessman persona. And it's funny because he goes after Trump a lot, but it's hard not to see the parallels. They've got a lot in common in that both billionaires and both kind of frauds, and both a lot of and both guys where a lot of the persona is based on a TV show. Most people who know of Mark Cuban, I believe, know of him
because of Shark
from
Tank.
Shark Tank. Yeah, just
Yep.
like Trump and The Apprentice, that was big for him,
Mhm.
that he was firing people and looking like a CEO. To be clear, Mark Cuban knows more about business than I know. I couldn't have made a
Of
billion
course.
dollars, but it seems like beyond those two wonder strikes that he had back at the turn of the millennium, one was selling broadcast.com, and it immediately went belly up, and it's considered one of the
Can I
worst
ask you,
news.
Ethan, because I'm not a journalist and I have no integrity, um, or intellectual rigor. What the fuck was broadcast.com? I've never looked into this. I don't like why did Yahoo think this was something they wanted to like what was it?
I mean, I don't completely know either. The charitable interpretation is maybe it was ahead of its time. It had
Okay.
something to do with my vague recollection of Cuban as an Indiana Hoops fan wanting to be able to listen to the games on the internet. But I would be
Mm.
lying. I would be over my skis if I tried to explain exactly what went wrong there. My general takeaway is that he sold the thing, and then the thing was worth nothing after he sold it. It was just that was it. And then he made another great decision. He had a great buy low of the woebegone
Mhm.
Mavericks. So credit to him.
He got
But
that for like 100 something million, didn't he?
I mean, it was a good buy whenever he got it.
Mhm.
And it's funny because it sounds so stupid to criticize because his net worth, based on reports, has not really gone up significantly since then. So it sounds like such a weird criticism that, hey, you only, made an extra billion or so in the last 20 years. But for a guy like that, who's always presenting himself as
Yeah.
Mr. Businessman in a market
Mhm.
where if you really have money, you can make a whole lot of it. And there have been a whole lot of billionaires made. I think a lot of people in the business world, similar to Trump, go, kind of a fugazi, kind of where's the beef right here? Where are the results? And most recently, he's just got involved in a lot of crypto crypto disasters of trying to tell, hey, I'm involved in this. This is the new wave. And then I think he got involved in a scam of some kind. I'm forgetting. I'm trying not to get sued, so I'm being a little too careful while I talk extemporaneously. Plus, I've noticed that people on podcasts with you can get aggregated. Is what I've noticed. Perhaps to their detriment when getting loosey-goosey and joking around. So
first of all, that's on the Ringers podcast network. On this little rinky thing we do here at Count the Dings and Bros, this is a safe space, Ethan. I don't think the aggregators at NBA Central will be paying much attention to this one.
I just don't want to come off like I'm Mr. Knows Business. All I'm saying is people I talk to who know business say kind of a fugazi, kind of full of shit, kind of has his chest puffed out, always on the next wave, sort of obsessed with youth and being young. So he's saying we need to TikTokicize the NBA. He used that verb, maybe if you like Luka, through machine learning, you'll see, everything Luka's doing. And maybe if you like Steph, it will take, like, I don't know, man. Like, how about just like put a game on and have people watch a game? He's always on that next wave. And it seems with him, there's a pattern of whatever next wave he's flaunting not working out, such as when he dismantled his championship team and said it was all because the new CBA brought in a new world order and everything else. And then a few years later, he said, whoops, shouldn't have done that. He has a lot of whoops, shouldn't have done that, including the scandals, which maybe I can't be so glib in joking about.
No, and I think it's important to sort of contextualize Cuban, even in his role as NBA owner, right? Like I remember when he first came around and he was sitting on the baseline and he's yelling at refs. And, he put in these brand new facilities and like he was seen as this younger, more cutting edge guy, sort of exploiting the market inefficiencies of like, look, we can't pay guys X, Y, and Z, but we can get a way nicer plane. We can pay for these things on the margins. We can make players' lives better. Like he was seen as this guy who was just on the cutting edge on what a new age modern sports franchise should be.
Okay, so to answer your question, I finally got why was I interested? Just because I looked at him as so archetypal. He is the nouveau riche, new money NBA owner in the first one. The changing of the guard from mom and pop shop,
Jerry Buss to those freaking dudes in Philadelphia, right?
Exactly.
It's to Mark Lazary and all of those people in Milwaukee. Milwaukee has like 4 owners and like they do like a take your turn to own it. Like they have this weird
Stanley Cup.
Yeah, ownership structure. Yeah, it's like a hockey line. It's just he is part of that. Venture capital, hedge fund, private equity, etc. He was the basically patient zero of those guys coming into the NBA.
Yeah, he was a new thing. And I remember back then it was this weirdly big deal. He was suddenly famous because here's this guy, this owner. We envisioned them like the Monopoly man, but he's wearing a t-shirt, he's in flip-flops, and he's yelling at the refs, and he's in the news, and he's getting fined by David Stern. He was this new guy, and he's had this staying power. He is the second most famous owner behind Michael Jordan, obviously, who is not famous. I don't even know if most people know Michael Jordan owns a team.
For the Charlotte Hornets. He's not famous for that.
As far as, famous for being an owner, he's like the closest thing the NBA has to a Jerry Jones, who's also in that city. And there's something about that city. I'm drawn to that city, that crazy city of Dallas.
Yeah, it's a weird place. The Metroplex. Even in Texas, I feel like Texans even have like that opinion of like that is even for Texans, we acknowledge that area of our state is a strange place.
Well, maybe I shouldn't drop his name. I don't know if he wanted or not. But a friend of mine who's a beat writer and is traveling around, whose name rhymes with Manthony Zader.
Okay.
It's Anthony Slater. There's no reason not to tell the story, but he was saying, dude, I was in Dallas and I was on the Katy Trail, which is apparently a trail down there that's kind of the main drag. And I saw the craziest thing. I saw Troy Aikman shirtless and he's jacked, wearing a gold chain with his initials on the chain with a big jug of water. And he's just schmoozing, talking to the ladies and living it up. And I thought, that's Dallas right there. That's Dallas right there. Something about that city.
And Cuban comes right out of that, right? He's not native to Dallas, but he was like, screw it. Like, they're gonna let
Yeah.
me buy an NBA team. I have no problem going to Texas and taking it there. And like you said, he starts making waves and he starts, basically getting a lot of positive press, and listeners to this show, Ethan, you know me well enough. Like, honestly, whenever people in our profession start extolling the
Mhm.
virtues of the executives, like now, like before, I was very susceptible to it. Like, oh, these guys must be smart. Jeannie Buss must be a genius basketball executive, to borrow a random person who we made into a freaking genius a few years ago because her brother was such a bumbling idiot by comparison.
Yeah.
I used to eat that stuff up. Now, whenever I see it, I'm just like, and I think it all started with Hinkie for me. But you're right. Cuban was like the first of his kind because he would give media guys his phone number. He
Yeah.
was famously like, yo, email Mark Cuban, he'll hit you back type of
Yeah.
thing. And he cultivated this persona and this reputation amongst the people, the fucking blue check aristocracy.
Yeah, and I tend to try to look at these things from the perspective of anybody successful usually has something going for them, something that they're good at. I don't think Cuban is an exception to that at all. There are things he has done to put himself in this position, that accessibility, going on TV, being good at TV. I think people
Mhm.
like to watch
Yeah,
him doing
yeah.
all these cameos where he's on Entourage and he's in Billions and he's extended his brand. And the funny thing was that the other owners are jealous of him. They have more
Mm,
money than he does often, and they have more victories, but they would rather be Mark Cuban in many instances than own a team that has won more championships or be a guy that has more money because Cuban has gotten this ineffable thing, this fame and this persona that they can't have and they can't replicate. So he's accomplished something clearly. I wouldn't scoff it at all, even if I would just remind people that, hey, this thing he recommended kind of didn't work out. That thing he recommended kind of didn't work out. He didn't like the purchase of YouTube by Google and he warned against it, which was obviously a great decision by that company.
Killer decision.
His track record over the last 20 years, business wise, not the greatest. And yet the fame has expanded again, a little bit similar to to old DT.
I mean, I feel like that says everything you need to know about the culture right now. Not just the culture of like the culture industry, but just like all you gotta do is be associated with money, and the people of this country will venerate you. And obviously, my politics, and I would like for that to be the opposite, but it's not. It's not. People will like you and assume that you are competent, assume that you were smart, assume that you have all of these wonderful qualities about yourself just because you've achieved some level
Well,
of rich fame.
if you seem cool, I mean, I have a theory on this.
Mm,
People,
mm, mm,
they'll let you rule over them like some old nobleman if you project some sort of confidence or some sort of brashness. If you live life the way they would imagine they would live life, the way people said that Donald Trump was a poor person's idea of a rich person, and there was
mm,
appeal to that. Mark Cuban, if you're a regular person, you go, oh man, that's what I would do if I had money. I would buy my favorite team. I would yell at the refs. That's cool. I don't think people want to be ruled over by a dweeb like Bill Gates. I don't think that's cool
mm.
for them, or Mark Zuckerberg, somebody who just
Right. Oh,
projects
he is
no
so
charisma or
fucking
I don't know.
unlikable. Oh my God.
Yeah, I
Jesus
mean,
Christ. He's got the most punchable face since I don't even know Adolf Hitler. I really don't know. Like, honestly,
well,
like
I need
who's
two
got the most
guys, and we're gonna
punchable
leave it
face?
vague as to which guy you meant, to guard against any retribution.
So here's the thing about Cuban too that I thought you beautifully got into in your piece is that like the Mavericks are a mess,
Yeah,
like a complete and utter mess. And one of the epiphanies that I've had in the last few years, also related to becoming friends with you guys and Amin and etc., is Amin's explanation that like, yo, ownership is the most important variable in the
yeah,
success of a professional franchise. So it's not like they've been an abject failure, but they've been like very dysfunctional, like extremely
yeah,
dysfunctional, especially since that championship was won in 2011. And all of it flows from the top, because the owner is, at the end of the day, he's the one with the ultimate hiring and firing power. He's the one who decides who gets to interview for the job, who gets to even come in, right? And look for the job, much less hire it, all of that stuff. Like this, it's a dictatorship. Like there's times where he can be swayed by different people, different pockets of the organization on things, but ultimately it comes down to what Cuban wants. And so when the organization is both basically stinking it up on the court and then in their freaking basically workplace culture, it's a tire fire. I don't see how this hasn't reflected more poorly on Mark Cuban.
Yeah, you have to wonder if Dirk was such a solidifying presence and allowed it to work, even with Cuban's, let's say, impulsiveness. I think impulsiveness is something you hear a lot when you ask people who worked there. Is that he's very impulsive, he's very hands-on. People don't hate him. He's not a malicious guy,
Right.
but there is narcissism there, and there's a distractedness, and it seems like there's a revolving door. Well, I was about to say there's a revolving door. That's not even true, because they had Carlisle forever, they had Donnie Nelson forever, but it did turn into this complete weird mess where it wasn't clear who was in charge of what, and it culminated in quite the blow up, and now is in this current lawsuit that maybe we can mention, where it's just a very strange circumstance.
Can you just quickly can you explain to the people what's happening with this lawsuit by former team president Don Nelson Jr.?
Yeah, Donnie Nelson, who, that was another weird thing, is that Don Nelson sued Cuban at one point. Don Nelson used to be the coach. Then Cuban hires Donnie. A lot of people say that was some weird rich guy, fuck you, your son works for me now type of thing. That's just weird. What I hear. That's just what I hear. Hey man, billionaires, they're a strange breed of character. So Donnie Nelson is suing, and involved in the documents is that his nephew, he alleges that Jason Luton, who's Cuban's right-hand man, came on to Donnie Nelson's nephew in what was supposed to be a work setting or an interview for a job, as I recollect it. And then as retaliation, Donnie was frozen out. And the crazy thing about it, in that, in those documents that allege it from the Donnie Nelson side, is that Donnie Nelson was offered a contract of $60 million. Now, when I read that, before reading the response from Cuban's people, I thought they're going to say, no way. Like that, that didn't happen. We never offered that.
That's crazy. Even somebody as senior as Donnie Nelson Jr. would be in that organization. $6.6 million guaranteed over the course of 10 years is an exorbitant contract.
And he had been frozen out at that time. He'd been marginalized. The Mavericks haven't won a playoff series since their championship. So when I saw that, I thought, Cuban's people are going to say no way. But in their responding document, they said that they did it. And I was just, oh my God, look, I don't want to get sued myself. I don't want to get sued myself. But if one guy is alleging that, is effectively presenting the unfired gun of having some extortive power over you, and then you yourself reveal that you kind of hurriedly offered him $60 million before you fired him, I'm going to assume that there are some skeletons and he knows about them. That is a very strange detail from that particular mess. We will see how it gets resolved.
And again, and for people who care about this sort of thing, and this is public information, we're not betraying any confidences. Somebody talked shit about Haralabab Vulgaris, who was, he was part of the Donnie Nelson, whatever, situation. And so much as he was seen as usurping that guy's authority, and he had the ear of Mark Cuban, which then got Donnie Nelson pissed off. Anyway, somebody tweeted him and said, shut up. Your star player hated you. We don't want to hear your basketball takes. Shut the fuck up. He's not in the organization anymore. And he tweeted back a quite interesting clapback where
Indeed.
he said that it was written by a narcissist, and the information was being fed by said narcissist. Full disclosure, I used to work with Tim Cato. I think he's a nice guy. I don't have any problems with Tim. I don't know that he's a narcissist. He was always nice to me when I worked over there. And then he implied that Donnie Nelson took part in a honeypot operation, allegedly sending his kin in there to seduce the guy, to out him and his. It's all fucked up.
This is one of these reasons why when I looked at the lawsuit, I didn't immediately just say one side was right or wrong, because I heard enough about how Donnie Nelson is a fairly sharp-elbowed Machiavellian character, and hey, it's his family. Maybe everything
which is a nice way Ethan is saying that he's a shady dude. He has a reputation for being shady. Like, basically how he was able to stay in with the Mavericks that long. It's not that he was some genius level basketball mind. Is that he just knew how to wheel and deal. He knew the right palms degrees. He knew when to grease them. He was just a wheeler and a dealer in a way that allowed for him to stay in that place where, again, like, he got fired last year. They haven't won a playoff series since they won the championship in 2011. And he just got fired.
Yes. And the timeline, from what I've heard, that article in The Athletic triggered the firing, because that article comes out. There are all these shots at Haralabos, call him Haralabos based on Twitter. And everybody assumed the shots came from Donnie Nelson. I don't know specifically who said what, but that was the assumption. So Donnie Nelson gets fired. Meanwhile, I mean, people in the NBA know who's running the Mavericks. It's Mark Cuban, hands-on. It's not Bob. It's not Donnie. It's Mark Cuban, as perhaps to their detriment, a very hands-on owner. But yeah, just a mess of that situation. And again, you don't want to assume too much with these things, because you mentioned Donnie Nelson. That guy had staying power, perhaps a shady dude. There are a lot of guys in the NBA where their skill is sticking around. And it's quite a skill. It doesn't necessarily correlate to winning basketball games.
Comes to mind. Steve Mills with the Knicks, where it's just like, why is he still employed? He lost the job where he's in charge, but he still gets to be around. Like, what? Like, he's just always there. Like, what is happening here? There's a few guys in the NBA like that. We bring up the Don Nelson lawsuit because, again, this is all happening under Cuban's watch in an organization where he sets the culture. Of course,
the culture is party all the time. Again, and this goes back to the, hey, this is what I would do. It's like people are thinking, hey, this is what I would do. I'd be partying with Chandler Parsons and doing shots at 2 a.m. in the nightclub with my players. That's what I would do. But it's hard to do that and have a culture that's, I guess, functional. You need to, I mean, this is a weird perspective, Wos, but I almost feel like, as Kevin Durant once said to me, grow up. You're pushing 60, like you gotta grow up and be a boring NBA owner, Mar.
and again, Ethan, like you brought up some extremely thoughtful points, I thought, in your piece, specifically around the Me Too stuff, where everybody basically got tarred and feathered in all of the major industries. You name it, people got just destroyed and exposed for terrible, awful behavior around women. It finally got to the NBA and specifically to the Mavericks. What's the executive's name? The black dude, Mesery?
Yeah. I think that's.
I forget his name. He's the one who ultimately. He's the one who took.
By the way, it's bad I can't remember, because people thought that dude was going to be the next NBA commissioner. That was quite crazy. Quite the fall.
That's insane. But again, he ends up taking the fall for it. Mark Cuban, of course, brings in a black woman. Whenever somebody's in trouble, whenever they put a black woman in charge, you know the situation is completely dire and fucked up, right? So they hire a black woman, put a black face on this thing. Everything is fixed up. We don't have race problems. We don't have sexual assault problems. None of that. And Cuban, of course, his reputation is intact. Somehow he beats this. His team stinks. It's fine, even though he's the one pulling all the strings. His organization is shown to be abusing women, sexual misconduct with women employees, potential male employees. Like this shit runs the gamut. Yeah.
Turdema usury is the
Okay, there you
name
go.
I should have remembered. Yes.
Usury. There you go.
Yes.
Yeah. So Cuban just continues to be Teflon. And related to the Me Too thing, I just want to tell you just a quick thing that I was like, yeah, Ethan, you did a great job, but you're getting an A, but this is your one mark when you were surprised that the players weren't caught up in this. I was like, yeah, these chicks are older and less hot. The players might not be interested. Like that's all. I was like, if this was the dance team, the cheerleaders, and all of that, I'd be like, hold on. Players never had nothing going on, but like the people that this guy would have been interfacing with on a day-to-day basis, just they don't really fit the physical profile of what NBA players tend to go for.
It is so weird because people don't even conceptualize what the office looks like. I remember the old Warriors practice facility. You open the doors, they've got the kind of see-through glass of where the gym is, and it's where players are working out. And you don't go in there. You're not allowed in there. I think I was invited to just go through those doors once, and it was to follow Warriors co-owner Peter Guber to interview him for the book I wrote. And, I followed him through it, and you go through that gym, and then all of a sudden it's cubicles, and it's like this little kind of office space world behind the gym. Yeah. And so to what you're 100%. Saying, yeah, it might've been totally compartmentalized where it was office world, but in the NBA, there are a lot of circumstances where dancers get involved with players, and then it goes bad in some way, and they've got to deal with it, and somehow they make it all go away somehow. And when Me Too hit, it almost seemed like it correlated most as far as punishments with the institutions that were most sensitive to that, as opposed to maybe the institutions with the most problems. I just don't believe that NPR, which had mass purges of various personalities, had more misogyny and sexual harassment going on than, let's say, the NFL is just, I'm supposing and putting out there.
Yeah, but you see, the thing is, I think that the problem is that, one, the players, it's twofold for me. The players are actually people who are desired outside of the context of that workplace. So which is to say, like, they get chicks, right? Just like in the normal context. That's one. And two, your relationship with a player will not directly help your career advancement in the marketing department. It does, like, you're not going to become VP of sales because you fucked I don't know, Rick Brunson. Like so those relationships become less fucked up and problematic, honestly, than some of these other relationships we're talking about in different places, which again is not to defend the players. I just think the circumstances don't allow for it to get as messy as Harvey Weinstein straight up just telling a chick, I will put you in a movie with Matt Damon if you suck my dick.
Well, and then somewhat related to that is just, I think, we were repulsed when the unattractive, like Harvey Weinstein. I mean, I don't even know. It's a difficult thing to broach, but I am reminded of the SNL sexual harassment skit where it's one of those black and white PSA type messages on sexual harassment. And it's, I think, Tom Brady and Fred Armisen, if I remember right. And the joke of it is that Fred Armisen is committing the misdeeds by doing everything Tom Brady's doing.
Exactly. Yeah. 100%.
Like, we know 100%. What we're talking about here. We know what we're saying.
Yeah.
I think we've avoided aggregation. Maybe. I don't give a shit. I can't get what am I going to do? Fire myself? Like, I don't know. But to your point again, with Cuban and just how he operates is just
it's just kind of hilarious that he continues to have this so front facing posture with this company, with the league, with his team individually, and just as one of America's famous business rich guys. And the incompetence it's everywhere if anybody's looking for it.
Yeah, I almost want to look up Mark Cuban and crypto scam as a Google search because
I just know it's something called Titan.
Yeah, Titan didn't go well. Yeah.
By the way, crypto bros, I don't have a beef with you. My thing about crypto, when it was first presented to me as an idea, I actually went to a Bitcoin like sort of meet and greet thing in 2014.
Yeah.
And they gave a great presentation, had refreshments, and basically what they were saying, you can move money secretly. I was like, that is an incredible technology that I don't know how Uncle Sam could abide by this. That's just it. Like, that's why I was just like, this shit can't possibly last. This goes against everything that our society is founded upon, basically, like the ability to extract.
Dude, go ahead. Dude, because like I'm revisiting it. I do this thing where I write about something, I forget. You're asking me, and I've already forgotten a lot of the details I wrote about. But I'm reading this Yahoo article on Cuban getting scammed on crypto. It's so funny. His conclusion from the episode, according to the report, is that investing in a cryptocurrency that doesn't have a reason for existing is wrong. Back when the token crashed, Cuban told Bloomberg he was rugged, a reference to a crypto scam called a rug pull, but added that it was his fault for being lazy.
Again, Ethan,
when investing in something that doesn't have a reason to exist.
Like, listen, Ethan, that's the entire point of what I was saying. Like, at first, Bitcoin absolutely did have a reason to exist. You could move money secretly. Silk Road, all of that shit. People bought all kinds of drugs from China, all kinds of crazy shit. Before people listen to me, the feds have their hooks in this. They will catch you. They know where your money's going at all times. This shit is no longer an anonymous way to move money around. Listen to me clearly. It no longer serves that function. It's just straight up just an asset, right? Like, you're taking a bet, like, I'm buying it at this, and hopefully one day I'll be able to sell it at X. That's it. And, the idea that, like, LeBron is selling you crypto during the Super Bowl is just freaking laughable. But yeah, Mark Cuban is a joke, and whatever. We can move on from that. I want to talk to you about another thing related to owners and something that you were super in tune with. How is this Joe Tsai shit gonna keep going?
Oh man, it's a crazy.
This feels like it can't continue the way it is.
It's the type of thing that when people have wild conspiracy theories about the global elite and they'll reference Jeffrey Epstein, you wonder, because it's this guy, he's like a man from nowhere almost, where he's from Taiwan, but he's Chinese, but kind of maybe there's Canadian, and he lived in my neighborhood where I'm from in San Diego and has a house there, but he's also a New Yorker and owns these teams and runs these teams and is involved and invested in all these global foundations, but is maybe down with the CCP, who disappeared his business partner, Jack Ma. And it's just, what the hell? I mean, Prokhorov, he's shadier than Prokhorov, who couldn't have been shady. You thought they couldn't have outdone it at the Nets.
Let's get one thing clear here, and I think our listeners understand this. Unlike America, where our government officials and government basically exists at the behest of our overlords in the business world, that equation is flipped in places like Russia and China. So therefore, if Alibaba, if you're the CEO of Alibaba, you're not your own boss. You work for the Chinese Communist Party. Period. Full stop. He's an agent of the Chinese Communist Party. There's no two businesses don't get to operate that way in China. If you work for Alibaba, if you're their CEO, you are a sock puppet for the Chinese government. And I'm not being boogeyman or whatever the case may be,
No,
but that's what it
all,
is.
all this stuff is out in the open, and I don't even look at it with this seething
No, it's not.
xenophobic rage of like, oh, I hate China. I just look
That's
at it
their
as
system.
like China is very upfront. We want to supplant the United States. When officials are talking and they're talking to their own people, it's we want to supplant the United States. There are a bunch of Chinese spies in the United States. This is all very documented. I'm sure there are American spies in China. The two countries have this adversarial relationship, but it's completely confounded by the business leaders
Yeah.
and people of influence in the United States acting like it's all hunky dory and come on down, buy an NBA team, whatever, get involved in this, get
That makes
involved
absolutely no sense.
get involved in that. And I'm not a very nationalist person, I don't think. I mean, I am in a functional way. I live here, right? I want the
Yeah.
best for this country because I live here. But it does seem to me a kind of corruption where it's funny because you mentioned the way it works over there, where the billionaires have to kowtow to the government. I don't know if that system is the best system, but I can't help but look at it sometimes and be a little bit jealous of it, just in the sense that they fear a god. They fear something, as opposed
Yeah.
to our billionaires, where it's just they don't really seem to fear anything,
Nothing.
and they don't give
Nothing.
a shit about our national interests. They look way past us. They're looking towards the next market, and so there is this asymmetry that I think justifiably pisses people off. That our major corporations will just be quivering in fear at offending China, but they don't
And
even
it's
give a
just
fuck about us.
greed. It's just pure
That's
greed.
yes.
Like if if Russell Westbrook this year, instead of making 45 million, made 32, I think the NBA would be fine. Like, I'm sorry, like, how much more money are you making that it's so imperative that you chase this dragon? And I'm not trying to be racial there. Like, I'm just saying, like, this shit is weird to me. Just the pure greed of it. It's like, well, the NFL's doing this in profits. We have to go out and find other profits. And it's like, now you're in business with the Chinese government in a way that is completely incongruent outside of the, oh, they have billions of people to sell shit to part of it, which I get. It's important business, commerce. I get it. Outside of that one thing, the shit don't fit with your business.
And it totally corrupts the conversation in American media, because so many major American media companies are into China in some respect.
Yes.
Obviously, Disney, ABC, I don't even need to make that point. That's
Bruh,
totally obvious.
Hello.
NBC, Comcast, they've got theme parks. They've got Universal Studios over there.
Bruh,
they're worried about
they're
that.
They're selling media products there. They're selling
Be-
movies, TVs, whatever.
Jeff Bezos, one of the biggest retailers in China, he's got business interests in China. He runs the Washington Post. Bloomberg, major business concerns in China that he was open about, and was trying to say that it's not really a dictatorship, and try to smooth that over. Michael Bloomberg. So you don't have to have a lot of imagination for why, let's say, the issue of how coronavirus happened has not been foregrounded by our major media entities, it would seem, which I don't think that's a right-wing concern. That just seems to be one of the most important questions in the world, given the last 2 years. So it is, I think, an unsustainable dynamic in a number of respects. I think that eventually it's like standing on two pieces of ice on a pond that are just floating in opposite directions. And the institutions that try to do it are going to encounter some tension. Now, with the NBA is encountering tension for a very specific reason that I think has been ignored, because it's very odd. And it's that they've devoted so much capital to trying to develop a Chinese superstar, because China, very nationalist country. I get it. I understand. Xi, he wants to promote nationalism, pride of country. Well, this is a weird thing, because they don't have any Chinese players in the NBA. They've tried for like 2 decades. They built these academies. They've sunk hundreds of millions of dollars into it. It's a crazy outcome. It's got to be one of the greatest failures in human capital. You've got I think you've got 2 NBA players from Japan. You've got an NBA player from Finland.
Joel Embiid and Pascal Siakam are both from Cameroon.
Yeah. You've got superstars coming out of countries in the Balkans that have fewer people than, I don't know, the area I live in.
Then Rhode Island.
Yeah. This is not what was expected. I don't know why they're incapable of doing it, but it's created a circumstance where it gives them way less leverage over China, because Xi, I think, looks at the situation and goes, NBA could take it or leave it. We don't have any, we don't have Yao Ming. You guys thought we were going to get the next Yao Ming. We were hyped for that. That would have been great for our people to watch a guy like that. But it's actually not even a lack of superstars. It's nobody. And so long as it's nobody and there's an absence of superstars, that dynamic, I just don't think can sustain. It's just not a natural fit going forward.
Yeah, and again, for the NBA, like, bro, just figure out somewhere. I get, like, it's so tantalizing to be like, man, the eyeballs and the ad revenue and the sponsorship, and oh my God, we're gonna be so rich. Like, I get it. I get it, but it doesn't make any fucking sense as far as like the geopolitical implications, like, because the people at the levers of power are so beholden to the business interests. That's why I don't think going to war with China is going to war with ourselves. Yeah. It's literally a civil war. Like,
that's how a lot of wars go, man. Like, both sides lose, unfortunately.
Like, we're so intimately interwoven at every single part of our society. This damn laptop I'm talking to you from, like, everything we do, my phone, my clothes, my sneakers, like, everything we do is so interconnected with what they do. And the people who have the most interest in that continuing in the way that it is, because it's been so fucking profitable for them, they're not gonna let us actually fucking go to war with China. That, like, again, like, we'd literally be going to war with ourselves.
I would tend to agree, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's an economic Cold War. I do think eventually the populace and their preferences have an impact, because
I would hope so.
I don't think this is the issue, in my opinion, that has the biggest chasm between people of influence and just regular people. When they do polling on it, I think it's 75% of people right now have a negative opinion about China. And then we're not saying obviously Chinese people, we're talking about the government. I would hope that's the what people in those surveys are communicating. But I think it's maybe even more than that now. This is bipartisan. And the NBA and other corporations that get tethered to China, if you have more geopolitical standoffs, I think are going to take a lot of heat, and there's going to be increased pressure, because ultimately, yeah, we're interwoven.
Get out of China.
We were sold a bill of goods. It was this message from the 90s that they're going to become a liberal democracy and it's going to benefit us. And I think looking around saying, well, we didn't get richer. They got more powerful. They're demanding that GMs get fired in the NBA. And it seems like a credible threat. I don't like this, and they're right not to like it.
By the way, and I heard that in the past, the NBA had sort of turned their noses at getting funding for teams from people like the Emiratis. I'm like, excuse me, how are they worse than I don't understand this.
Yeah, it's so
like how they do in European soccer. I'm just like, I don't know. The Qatari government, it's fucked up, but like,
yeah,
how is China this like panacea? I don't understand that shit.
I mean, I think again, it's they're just tangled up in so many businesses that it doesn't hurt as much as excommunicating Russian billionaires or something like that. And so, yeah, it all seems very arbitrary. But I think the dynamic behind it was, because you said, if Westbrook makes a little less money, I think it's this embedded growth principle, as they call it, where you need to keep growing the pie,
grow.
And so I call it the undecided whale dynamic, where institutions, they take for granted the core customer because they really feel so much pressure to return value to shareholders. And so it all becomes about the undecided whale that they could perhaps capture. And I think China has represented that for the NBA. And we see those business dynamics play out because, like, a lot of people pay a lot of money not a lot of people, but a few people pay a lot of money for these franchises, and that money isn't necessarily correlated with the profit that those franchises are
Mm.
returning today. It's all based on just the idea of what it's going to be going forward. If you take that off the table and there's a sense of actually there's going to be a haircut, you could see, I guess inflation counteracts it. Now we're getting very far afield, but there's a
Yeah.
reason, for instance, I don't think people are going, well, why isn't Robert Sarver at risk of losing the Phoenix Suns when these allegations come forward in the way Donald Sterling was? And
They'll
it's
make
just,
him step down and he'll give it to a kid or something.
well, I think the reason is, when that happened, the NBA was on top of the world in many respects when Donald Sterling happened, and I think they probably had already locked up that TV contract, even if the reports
And
weren't out yet.
honestly, Ethan, man, fucking one of the richest dudes in our country, probably one of the 10 richest guys in America, came in and overpaid for the team, thereby
Yeah.
skyrocketing the value of every single team in the league. So
Well,
if the owners were like, damn, this is kind of fucked up, they pushing them out. But at the same time, it was like, hey, man, this shit gonna up the value of my franchise by X amount of
yeah.
money. Fuck it, let's do it. Kick them out.
Well, my point I'm making is that if you establish the sense that it's not just Donald Sterling and he's not just this special case, but they can take it away from you, it becomes a less valuable asset.
Absolutely.
I think there's an appeal to, I can buy an NBA team, I can do anything, I can pass it down to my incompetent kid, and he can pass it down to his incompetent kid. That
Yeah.
seems great. But if they open a door to, we can take it away from you. And hey, a lot of these guys have skeletons in their closet. I think we can assume. I think there's a fear in the NBA of making the asset less valuable by punishing some of these guys.
Okay, last thing I want to get you out of here. Kyrie take. I know blue check. I don't know, because I'm getting old, Ethan, and I'm getting washed up. How I know this is just the Devin Booker, and then it was Westbrook, and then it was this, and then it was KD, and it was suck my dick, and it was I'm just as a question of decorum, I think NBA players should hold themselves to a higher standard than people who I have very low opinions of, which are potty mouth sports fans. Not all sports fans, just people that want to go to an arena and say, oh, suck my dick, your kid is a retard, blah, blah, blah type of shit. I don't have a high opinion of those people. And so the idea that NBA players would bring themselves to the level of those cats, I've just the washed old head in me is just like, not a good look, young fella. Not a good look. But however, I understand you're a human being. You're not a monkey at a zoo. I get all of that. But some of the pom-pom waving for what Kyrie was doing, I don't know. I wasn't really feeling it.
No.
But again, I want to hear your sort of,
I just think it's funny because it's almost a play in two acts. And I like the first act, but I don't like the second act. I like the first act where he's just drilling shots on them and he's talking shit to the crowd, and you're feeling a little bit Reggie Miller versus Spike Lee, and this is great drama. He hates them, they hate him. This is fun. Maybe he goes a little too far, but he's playing amazing basketball, and I'm into it. And then the second act of the play is the press conference, the self-pity, I'm a person too, and It almost makes me wonder, if the NBA should review its policy of, maybe not everybody has to do media. Maybe the rule has to be some people target them. And yeah, the incentives are a problem. You could, getting out of jury duty, you can say something crazy so you can get out of jury duty. But I almost feel like
Kyrie, man, every time he opens his mouth, it's just like, oh God, where is this going? Why did we do this to ourselves?
We don't want to visit Meville, and he'll take us to Meville.
Oh, God.
And but at the same time, he's just so impressive. I mean,
yeah, he's brilliant. As a
he's
player,
just,
not as a communicator, but as a player, he's brilliant.
As a player, but also as a guy where people say, "Hey, man, I think he's going to be out of the NBA. He's going to retire or something." Like people have been saying that about him for the past few years, but he just shows up. You have no idea how much work he put in or didn't put in, and he just hits the ground running with maybe the greatest skill set in the history of the league. So he's just undeniable. But at the same time, I just think that, like you're saying, it's just not the most appealing message when players are broadcasting A, unhappiness, and B, a narcissistic unhappiness. That's just
Yeah,
not great for the sport. And unfortunately, I think the players don't care if it's great for the sport or not. Michael Jordan
they
had a
don't.
sense of, I'm an ambassador for the league, and as grows the
Yep.
league,
Mm-hmm.
what's good for the goose. I think now guys are making enough money, the league is established enough, and it's really hard to make them feel like they have some sort of piece of this or some
They
sort of
don't feel like they need to leave the league a better place than they found it for the generation coming up behind them. Absolutely not. I would love for somebody to pose that question to Kyrie.
yeah. Oh, yeah. No, they just want to sell broadcast.com at the right time is what they want.
That's it. That's it.
Yeah.
Ethan Strauss, please subscribe to his Substack. It's fantastic. I don't just say that because he's my personal friend. The guy is just fucking brilliant at what he does. Make sure you check out all our other Count the Dings offerings, patreon.com/Count the Dings. And what else you got for them, Ethan?
Oh,
Anything you
man,
want to tell the
I
people?
got some stuff. I think I might be even complimenting the NBA because I think it's been good recently. And I might be looking at an MLB situation. There will be content on House of Strauss. Check it out. Subscribe today.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for the time, Ethan.
Anytime, man.